Holy moly. Well, that I started out with a live chat and had a nice little intro, and then I was interrupted, and whatever I did, who knows where it is. And I keep, it's a beautiful evening. The sky is clear. All the stars are where they're supposed to be, and you know, what can I say? Everything is as it should be. As we all seem to be disrupted by this novel 19. This ain't anything different, anything new. You know, um, when I first started to meditate, you know, first time I meditated, I was third grade, guess 11, 10, somewhere around there. And I was getting ready. We had moved out into a place called Old Brookville, and I was going to a school system called North Shore School District, and it had been kind of a rural place, but there were farms and estates, really super rich people, like the Great Gatsby, right? And things were changing. The farmer guy was selling some of his land, and they were building little cul-de-sacs, a few houses here, a few houses there. And this one guy built himself a house and two other houses and sold them, and a few other lots he sold. And we bought one of those houses. And it was a pretty crappy Sears house, but it was like 8 acres, really beautiful. And the guy who did this had planted trees and bushes and flowers on the property that we had as like a nursery, right? For when he was going to build up the stuff, and then he never did. So my dad really liked it because there was a stand of about an acre of pine trees, so like Christmas trees, right? And they were like 5 feet apart, and they were about 6 foot high, and a few were higher. And he had this idea that every Christmas we'd come out and cut our own Christmas tree, and we'd have a sled and we'd drag it back, and we had a big den that had a big high, roof with the whole side wall looking out into our North 40. It was quite pretty. And, it was like being rich without being rich. I think my dad paid, $48,000 for the whole McGill, and he had the money. He said, "Here's the money," right? And my dad never, he always, one of the things was he never did anything without, "Here's the money," right? And like when he went in the stock market, he had $1 million because he had bought a piece of property that I told him it was right where Islip was and the Long Island Expressway stopped. And, Long Island looks like a fish with the tail. It was this property right there, which would make an amazing mall. And again, the property was ridiculously priced. And I talked my father and brother into it, and they bought it. Did they involve me in it? Zip, right? When they sold it, they got $2 million. My brother got like, $50,000, and my dad kept the rest of the cash. And my brother, worked for my dad for 40 years that way. I mean, he got a pretty good salary. He had a lot of perks, but really had no control or power over his life. He was just an employee. And my dad was like the Duke, and he treated everyone the same. And my brother, sadly, once he fought my father, the sword through the heart. He basically was a cardboard cutout of my dad. Now, I grew up with my bro. We shared a bedroom together. My bro was actually a really great brother. And what's interesting, he doesn't remember, so he was a good, 8 years older than I was. And so he was a teenager when I was a little kid. And he had his crew of buddies. And I would kind of not want to hang out, I would kind of hang out, but like at the edge, watching what they would do. I never ratted on my brother. I was just kind of going, I was being the anthropologist dude I was, right? And I remember being born. I remember everything. I remember my parents bringing me home and putting me outside. They had a sunroom, which wasn't in the house. The dog got to go in the house. I didn't. I was on a porch, right? My uncle Steve, luckily, he was thinking. He was the head engineer of LaGuardia, which became Kennedy after Jack got whacked. And so he had a big army of plumbers and so he basically came over one day when my mom was pregnant and realized where they were going to put me. He brought his boys over and he put it, he took a line off the coal-fired boiler that was right under the sunroom, even though the basement was under the sunroom. The sunroom, there was a wall of the house between the sunroom. It wasn't, you had to come through the mud room to get into, and my dad used to, and that's why I always viewed human beings as mud puppets, because the rest of my family had to come through the mud room. They were all mud puppets. Me, I was out in the glassed-in cathedral, and the steam would come out of that radiator and cover the windows, and then they would freeze because they weren't double pane. They were just single pane of glass, and the steam would go on the things, and then they would freeze, and then the sun would come, and that whole room would be like the ruby slippers, right? It would be like the Oz. When you come from the mud room into this place, it was like coming into Oz. Just like Dorothy, when she walks, her house gets thrown up in the air by the tornado and comes down on the nasty witch of the East. And, she's in her sepia house, and she opens the door, and bingo, there is Oz in this unbelievably super saturated Technicolor world. And that's what I was, I was put in that, and they didn't even have a bed for me. Sunray, good to see you, bud. And, they had a dresser drawer for me that was moldy. So that's, and I was strangled at birth by my umbilical cord. And these moron doctors were about to pop my head off like a tick. And Dr. Teresa, who was a female doctor, which in 1950 there weren't too many of, she pushed those guys out of the way. They were like taking me out with salad tongs, and she pushed me back in, moved me around. I was a breech baby. She moved me around and unwrapped. She had her hands in my mom's uterus, and she unwrapped the thing around. And the guys, she's got her hands in the woman's uterus. Oh my God. And, well, she had a uterus. She knew what it was about. So, and then she delivered me, right? And then she, and she took me away and she intubated me, She was one of the first people who developed the discipline of, birthing, putting babies in incubators, and intubating babies and, putting them on a drip, to hydrate them. And she did all those things for me. And she, it wasn't a standard procedure. And she broke every friggin' procedure, which kind of speaks to our present novel 19. What I am observing from far away, and I can't tell what it is, I can only go by what I'm seeing on the internet. And I have some friends around the country and the world who, are doctors and work in hospitals, and I'm getting a little feedback from them. And the bottom line is they. Who are they? Those they, who don't want us to, ascend our consciousness. They want us to be mud puppets, So, my alma mater, one of them. So, Bottom line is, what you need to do is feel from your heart. Not be, stop watching TV. Stop being freaked out by what it is. If you're being forced to stay in your house, read a book, write poetry, hang out with your family, tell them how much you love them, right? Now I'm lucky. I'm as far out in the middle of nowhere as you could ever be, right? And no one's coming around here anytime soon. And if they do, I'm all by myself out in the middle of the forest. It's like, yeah, I'm more, hey, I'm doing that social distancing, by about 40 miles. So I'm a good guy. I'm like a poster child of this, right? And I have and it's just the right time. Spring is coming, and the last few days, every day has been a miracle. So what are you guys saying here? So you missed my first trial starting, and I had a nice little sock puppet thing going here. There's, Dragon, buddy, good to see you. I'm glad you're here, keeping the frequency high through all of this. Yep, taking care of my family. Not a boy, not a girl. This is a perfect time to go within and put in the self-worth. Exactamundo. So maybe we do a guided meditation tonight. Sounds like a plan. There's 4 of you there. We can start doing it. Put yourself in a comfortable place. And I was telling you the first story of the first time I ever meditated. I was getting ready to go to 3rd grade. I'd already been there for, it was around, this spring, fall, winter, spring. It was about now. And it was a beautiful day. It was like about 7 a.m. I was getting ready to get in the bus. Everybody was running around. And I was sitting on my bed, and I had a sock. And I was just rubbing it up. For some reason, I don't know why, I was just, holding one end and just dragging it up and down my leg. And it was autoerotic / hypnotic. And I put myself in a hypnagogic state. And things just got smaller and smaller, and I got deeper and deeper. And I found a space where unconditional love was, right? And I just felt amazing, just amazing, right? And I was there, right? And I lost total track of time. And my brother and my sister and I would walk down to the bus. Well, they went down to the bus without me. They didn't say anything. Then, my mom was already, into her 3rd pack of cigarettes and starting her first pitcher and doing her little chores. And because she was the queen, she was all by herself. She could do whatever the heck she wants. She'd bake, she'd sew, she'd do the laundry, but at her own time, her own relaxation, her own whatever. And so she started vacuuming, and then she kind of came into my room, and there I was. I was just in my underpants, and I was like taking the sock up and down my leg, and it was probably around 10 a.m, right? We got to school, we had to get on the bus around 7. We were at the very end, and the bus went all over God's creation. And looked at me, and she said, what? Your connection is unstable. Please wait while we try reconnecting. Am I still with you guys? I've been in hermit mode, so I've been preparing for this for over a decade. Oh, having a couple of sips of vodka, yes. Giving a blessing to our Russian brothers. Yep. Mm-hmm. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Is it all okay? Yep. I can see. Okay. So my mom basically, what are you doing? Hey, why are you on the butt? Wait, what happened? And I said, huh? What? Huh? And my mom said, you must be sick. So she goes and says, hey, he'll come tomorrow. And she basically, said, put on some pants, go out and play. And my mother and I had been quite, from that emotional amaze, because she had, we had 6 kids and 2 of them were stillborn. And I was like part of a triplet, and I was the one who came out, even though those doctors tried to murder me at the beginning. And luckily, an angel was waiting, Dr. Teresa Black, and she took care of me for the first 10 years of my life. And because of that amazing first experience of trying to be, having my head popped off like a tick by my umbilical cord, my larynx was, and I always had issues with my lungs. And then when that nun beat the crap out of me and broke my jaw and broke my orbit, that didn't help either. So I didn't talk much. I kind of stuttered. I got pneumonia and strep throat and all of that virtually every year, around my birth date. And I was, super deadly allergic to mold and dust from my being placed in, my dresser drawer that was dusty and moldy out there. And every time the coal-fired boiler, the coal dust would come up through the floor, and so I was brought down. And it wasn't until I was 10 when I nearly died again, because I would get really sick and have pneumonia and all these things, and I, not quite dead, almost dead, but at 10 really did, right? And I was in a Catholic hospital, and and again, I'm like hallucinating, and I am watching The Wizard of Oz on a 1950s, 60s TV, a big round tube, and on the edges, everything kind of blurred off. And I'm like, and Dorothy's getting attacked by the Wing and Winkies, and this nun comes in, and her habit has these gigantic wings, right? And she looks over at me, and I scream, Wing and Winky! And I clock her one. My adrenaline springs into action, fight or flight, and I can't get out of this bed, so I clock her. And I hit her so hard, I knock her over me. I see her fly like a Wing and Winky right over me and smashes into a corner where all this hospital equipment was. And then I kind of go out. A few days later, I wake up and I am tied to the bed. I can't move. And I have a Hannibal Lecter mask over me so I can't bite anybody or say anything. And I'm in my own feces, right? And my parents haven't come to see me in 3 days. And my mom walks in, and there I am, tied to the bed with this mask over my head, smelling really bad. I've sunk into the bed, and everything is right. I'm in this pool of it, and she really gets pissed, right? And so she, flies into hospital director mode, and she storms up to the head guy, grabs him by the throat, drags him down there, and sticks his face into the pool between my legs. And he's he's getting a swirly with loaves and fishes floating in the swirly. And she pulls him out and she goes, "You'll hear from our lawyer." I mean, every time the Catholic Church did this, my mom would, just pick me out of the fire and say to them, "You'll hear from our lawyer." And she dragged me out and brought me back. And we were in Florida, and we had this nice house in Florida. What part of Florida was it? Pompano Beach, I think. And we were right on the beach, right? We were right on 1A. And alligators used to come through the thing. And we were on the ocean on one side of us and on the intercoastal on the other. And so my mom and my Aunt Gracie, my mom's best friend, she called her up, and Aunt Gracie flew down, and my dad and the rest of my brothers and sisters left. And it was just me, Aunt Gracie, and my mom. And then she called their other best friend, Aunt Wynn, And so there were these three girls, and there was a club, you know, this was kind of a development early before they even had gated communities, but there was a club, a little golf course, you know, not a real like a, you know, 5 hole, but and you know, they were just, you know, maybe 50 yard, you know, it wasn't a real golf course, but it was like 5 or 8 holes, had a swimming pool, had a tennis court, and Aunt Wynn and Aunt Gracie loved to play, and they had a card room, you know, and my mom, she took these guys to the cleaners. You know, she was clean because she could cheat like you know, for years she played every kind of card game there ever was. Um, you know, and you know, I was like their little monkey. So first week, you know, they nursed me back, and we'd walk across the street with an umbrella, and we'd lie on the sand, and they would have me in the hot sand, but not in the sun, so I wouldn't get heat stroke or a, you know, terrible suntan, and they'd lather me all up, and Aunt Gracie and I would go jump in the water and bounce around, and I love the waves, and Aunt Gracie was pretty. Both my mother and Aunt Gracie were almost 6 foot tall. Aunt Wynn was about 5'8", and so we'd all jump in, and the girls, you know, they were like taller than the waves. Aunt Wynn and I, we were like body surfing, and I just loved doing that. I just got such a kick out of body surfing. And at a certain point, when my Aunt Gracie and my mom had enough, they would get out and stand on the right up the edge of the water, and my Aunt Gracie would go up, 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 Albert, up, like a puppy, like a dog, you know, and I would jump up, and they brought a picnic basket, and they had a thermos of cocktails, and they would get giddy and just tell stories about being nurses and all the wild and crazy things they did. And there I am listening to all these great stories. You know, they're being a griot for me. And that was the second time I died. And we had 3 weeks of me recuperating. Oh, no, you're my mom. I could hear her on the phone. No, Ray, no, he still needs to be in the sun. Yes, it's winter up there, but, you know, so my mom just didn't want to hang with him or the kids. You know, yeah, get grandma. She'll take care of the kids. And Aunt Gracie, Aunt Wynn, and we would go and have really amazing dinners at this club virtually every night. And my Aunt Wynn, who loved breakfast, she was pancakes, eggs, bacon, sausage, potatoes. She was, you know, she taught me breakfast, right? Poached eggs, the whole thing. And they would have cocktails, you know, like from 8 in the morning on, and smoking cigarettes. And at least my mom and Aunt Gracie and Aunt Wynn smoked outside. This is like 1950s, and they would not smoke in the house at all, period, right? And they would not smoke by the door so the smoke would come. No, they would go over by the dock. The dock was beautiful and had a little cabana, so they would go there, you know, even if it was raining, they were covered. And they would smoke their cigarettes and drink cocktails and just laugh it up. And I would, you know, be in the house, and, you know, my mom took all the matches away so I couldn't blow anything up. But I remember one time an alligator walked in the house, and I thought it was a dog, right? So I was feeding it bologna, and it was a little alligator, not a big alligator. It's still an alligator. And I was feeding it, and I was calling it Puppy, right? And my aunts came in, and they saw me feeding the alligator bologna, and the alligator was just, you know, like, you know, and all of the geckos were coming over, and I had all of the reptiles sitting around me, and I'm throwing little pieces of bologna, and so that was really fun. And my mom and I had things like when I was about 4, when we lived in Freeport, and they had a really nice, you know, first they had this little teeny house that I was, you know, put outside, and then my grandma said, "Fuck this, I'm taking him," and took me to, and I said, frack this," and she took me away for about 5 years, you know, and really 7 years, but 5, and then she slowly put me back in my family, right? But by that time, I remember my dad once saying, looking at me at dinner table and looked at me and said, "Who are you? Do we know him? He's not one of us." I was about 5, 6. Now, when I studied to be a psychologist, and I found my my college record of my master's degree in social work, and anyway, that is a traumatizing thing when your parents, we don't know you, you don't belong with us, you're not one of the tribe. That's not a very good thing. Me, I was like, yeah, I'm not one of you. I'm glad I'm not one of you. So let's see what you guys are saying. I once ate a flying Twinkie, or at least I thought it was a real. Let's see. Hey there, Graham. Good to see you, buddy. Got your 13:05 Dublin time. Can feel bouts of energy strong. Yep. I'm sending it out to you all. Glad I stayed up. Yep. Me too. Love from Canada. Much love. I love you too, Dragon. Dragon is a real trooper. So I have starting off with this, if you kind of go look at the shows, you'll see this one is probably still running. It says live. And I started out with a pretty good, I was doing sock puppets and I was, having artistic license with what's going on. And all of a sudden I kind of got interrupted. Triple Capricorn. That was my mom. My mom was a triple Capricorn. Love from Canada, right? Leprechauns. Yeah, baby. And they're everywhere. Leprechauns are everywhere. I'm a triple Sagittarius. All these triples. Understand the energy very well. Okay. Love the show. Hi, folks. Butler. Let's see. Graham, thinking of moving to Ireland one day. Sooner rather than later, meaning I started traveling the world when I was 16, and from 16 until 1988, I was 40 something, 40, 42 maybe. No, I was older than that. I was 48. 38, one of those. And, from 1967 until 1988, I traveled the world, right? And before that, I traveled in America. When my freshman year, I kind of, got thrown out of the seminary. And it was a success that I survived it, literally. And I was heading for this other prep school that was for the uber rich, right? And I was just hanging out, and I got really bored. And the year before, I went up to Maine, and of course, before they let me in the seminary, I had to go to summer school. And I went to summer school with the richest kids in the world, at Long Lake Lodge on Long Lake in North Bridgeton, Maine. And I met the Ryersons there, and 3 daughters, and I fell in love with each oldest one first, the middle one, and then the youngest, who was my age, and we were smitten. We were Romeo and Juliet. And that summer we had the best love affair because we had no hormones, but we were in love and we were sweet to each other. And Long Lake was about 30 miles long and had all these nice little islands. And we would pack a lunch and we would sail to one of these little islands, and we would, enjoy the day, put out the blankie and sit there and look at the clouds and cuddle and smooch. But, that was it, held hands, went swimming. And and her parents were enamored because first I fell in love with their oldest daughter, who was going to nursing school, right? And she was, 21 or something, right? And she was she thought I was cute, but she was looking for a doctor to marry. That's why she was being a nurse. And the second one was like a scientist, right? She was about 19 and she was going to UMass, right? And she was a scientist and I was a scientist. So she thought, and I met them because Ryerson's owned everything in that town. They had the general store, the post office, the restaurant, and it all catered to this prep school that was part of the Longley Lodge. And so, you know, that next summer when I got thrown out of the seminary, and like I said, I just barely survived, and my parents first took me to Ireland, right? Because they wanted to go and they didn't, and my grandma's wasn't around and nobody was around to take care of me, so they weren't going to leave me home. So they took me to Ireland, got me my passport, and you know, took me to Ireland, and you know, Ireland, you know, and they were on the east coast where it's on the north, you know, the North Sea. It's dank, it's cold, it's icky. That's what people think Ireland is. West Coast, it's like Florida. The Gulf of Mexico it's got palm trees. It's beautiful. So the only time we went there is we went over the mountains through Tipperary down into Galway, and it was beautiful. And the races were there. It was amazing. And then we kind of went a little bit down that, and then around Skibbereen, went back over the mountains and came down into Dublin. And my parents stayed in Dublin for, you know, we landed and we drove around for about a week, and then we went into Dublin. And they were in the ritziest Ritz hotel, right? But I did not stay in the ritziest Ritz part of the hotel. I stayed in the basement with the help, and they had cheap rooms, right? And I would go and have dinner with my parents, and we, you know, they were going to see plays, right? So during the, you know, and they were shopping and doing all kinds of things in Dublin. And I was on my own, you know, I was walking around and seeing stuff and getting into it. And I went into this one store and I bought, you know, I made myself look like, who is that playwright, poet of the earliest 20th century? He's like, you know, the 1910 version of Gord Vidal, or Gord Vidal was the 1950 version of him. His name, and so, but he wore capes and big hat. I mean, I look like one of the Three Musketeers. I got myself these big boots and this cape and a white fluffier kind of, you know, Jerry Seinfeld fluffy shirt, and a big hat with a gigantic feather and a cane that was a sword, right? And I had these boots that made me like 4 inches taller, right? And they came up to almost my knee. And my parents, you know, I came back. I went to the desk because when you leave them the passport, right? And they give you the key, or there's something of that thing. Anyway, and I'm walking around, and the second day we were there, when my dad, you know, didn't want me to hang out with them, he gave me like 300 pounds of Irish money, right? And said, you know, and when we, you know, went into the hotel, you know, they had this big suite, and I go up there with them, and you know, they have this big suite, and they have a really nice bedroom and a veranda. And they're like on the 5th floor, overlooking the river and downtown Dublin. And I'm looking. So where do I stay? And my father goes, "Oh, we're going to go have dinner, and then we're going to see the guy at the desk, and he's going to show you where we're going to stay." I said, "Okay." We go have dinner. We go to the desk. He takes me down to the basement, and there are all of these rooms, and 89% of them are with Irish girls who are the maids and the waitresses and etc. And most of the guys there are gay. So there's like maybe 50 really hot Irish girls. I'm 16, and I'm the one, who's not working there but staying there. And they're going, "Oh, this guy, you know, his parents are rich, and he's staying down. Oh, we can have some good times with him." And my father, told the guy up there, okay, whatever he wants, room service down there, so because we don't want him to eat with us in the dining room. So, these guys, we had party, right? So, I was just learning, from seventh, eighth, sixth, seventh, eighth grade, freshman year in the seminary, and I had my main girlfriend who I truly loved, but all we did was hold hands and smooch a little bit. And then I had my sex goddess girlfriend who was in a nunnery. I was in the seminary, she was in a nunnery, and we were both like wild, crazy people. And I met her at a dance where I was just supposed to be her escort and then turn her over to, a senior or junior who was supposed to be her date. And she's, forget it. I like this guy. And so, she was like tongue kissing me in front of everyone, dry humping me on the dance floor. And my friends who were the band, and they were these two white guys from Connecticut who were like reincarnated black blues guys. And they were, playing these really raunchy sex blues songs. And nobody else is up dancing, and she's like humping me away. So I had some knowledge of hormonal sex, and also pretty much, except for Teresa, my all my experience with women were people who were older than me, right? So all of these girls who were, maids and waitresses, they were in their 19, 20, 21, 22, and I was 16. So my parents, go see the bishop because my godfather's a cardinal, and he hooks them up with the Pope. So they're going to fly out of Dublin and, go to Rome and have a personal thing with the Pope, not with like, 300 other people, but them and the Pope having tea, right? And so that's the level of my mom's connectivity in the Roman Catholic Church, right? And that's why I was, going to be, a seminarian. That's how I got a cardinal to be my godfather. That's how Thomas Merton was, another mentor of mine, because he fell in love with my mom and he became a Catholic priest because he was a Methodist and he wanted to date my mom. And she said, "Oh, Tommy, I can't date you. You're a Methodist. You got to be Catholic." So he went to become a Catholic and then fell in love with Jesus. So that was my pedigree. And so there I am in Dublin, and my parents take off to Rome and leave me there on my own. My dad gives me, I still have like 150 pounds left from the 300 he gave me, and he gives me 500. And that's like, $5,000 today. And I didn't really spend a lot of money on stuff because I didn't have to. The food, the booze, everything, and these kids who I was hanging out with, and we were partying every night. During the day, I would lose myself in, that's when I kind of stumbled on Trinity, and I stumbled on other really interesting things in Dublin. James Joyce's house, a really great bookstore that was a political, thing. Poets, bards, and politically agitating folk were at this bookstore, and that's I spent 2 weeks doing that, right? And one of those weeks my parents weren't even there, and the other weeks that they were there, I never even I had a dinner with them a couple of times. I went to one play, Victor Hugo. I was dressed like Victor Hugo, right? And this play, and I came in late because I didn't have dinner with them. I was going down to my room, and I went to the lobby, and the head guy said, "Oh, your parents are going to see, and here's the ticket. They told you here's where it is. I'll get you a cab, take you there." So I go there. The play has started maybe 15, 20 minutes into the play, and everyone sit down, and it's kind of a serious play, and so it's kind of quiet, and they're talking. And I walk in looking like Victor Hugo, and I got these big boots, and they're going click, 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 and I've got this amazing hat, like the Count of Monte Cristo, and a cape, big long cape, and a cane that had a sword in it, and I kind of sauntered in, and the people on stage stopped to look at me walk in. And so when they stopped acting and were like gawking at me, the rest of the audience is like, huh? And I walk and there's my parents, and I'm like, they're like in the middle. And I'm like, excuse me, just, ow. And so my dad was ready to go to Rome and leave me in that hotel. If he could have like sent me back, to their apartment in New York, but he was worried about what I'd be doing there. So much better to be in a hotel, right? And so that was my first real, European experience. And it was my first frigging experience. So I spent about 3 weeks with my folks for that, right? Maybe a month. First week driving around Ireland, and then, week they stayed in Dublin. They were there for 4 days. I spent 2 weeks. They went to Rome. And then they went to Paris, and then they came and got me, and we flew home. And so they left me on my own but I had my own apartment in New York. I was working for Mike Stoll, and I had my Lower East Side apartment, and my Allen Ginsberg was my roommate, my upstairs roommate. And this is how I roll. I don't plan anything. I don't expect anything. I have no expectations whatsoever, but these things constantly occur, right? Watch Bloomberg, good info. The news readers are very bad actors. The media is the true plague. And Donald, the carrot head, what I love about that guy, he lies so much. He tells the truth. I am sure this is an episode of The Simpsons, and it's like The Matrix. We don't realize that we're in an episode of The Simpsons, right? And it's being watched by that reptile extraterrestrial thing. And, and the executives had to really step it up because they're about to cancel the show. And if the show on this planet gets canceled, we go the way of the dinosaurs. They'll just throw a big rock at the planet, and that'll be the end of us. Time for a shot of vodka. Yep, time for a shot of vodka. I think this is a new drinking game. Everyone should go. How many are you? 8 of you. All 8 of you go into your cabinets and get your favorite libation, right? And every time I kind of stroll way, 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 way over here, it's time to take another shot of vodka or whatever your favorite libation, right? Dublin calling. Yep. Who's that? Dublin is calling. Da 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 da. I love that song. Make sure you got your crystal gems for protection from harmful frequencies. Well, I am a crystal gem all into myself. Our little blood is crystalline. And I keep doing the guided meditation where we're breathing in the prana, and it's energizing our blood. We're breathing it in through our lungs, and our heart is pumping our blood through there, picking up the prana, and the blood swirls through our veins, arteries, and capillaries, and not blub, blub, blub. It swirls clockwise, and inside of that swirl, it swirls counterclockwise. And inside of that swirl, it's swirling 90 degrees in parallax, thus being a scalar generator. You guys, me, we're all scalar generators. We're all crystalline beings, right? That's what animates us. Otherwise, we're just a bag of water, or as a lot of folks who are becoming, mud puppets, and that is, Billy Boy of the Billy Boy and M, world conquering thing, nonprofit. He took all his zillions of dollars of stock from Mini thing, and he stopped being the CEO, and he took all of that stock, instead of paying taxes for it, he put it into his nonprofit Billy Boy and M thing, and started doing things like transhumanism. And they did this great little thing in early fall called Event 201, which is a total blueprint of what we're experiencing right now. I mean, to the point of it saying, over, whatever this pandemic is, whenever anyone dies, it's caused by the pandemic, right? So, yep, Simpsons. Yep, we're in a Simpsons episode, and it's time for another shot of vodka. Early on, I mean, especially when that nun beat me up in first grade, I kind of had it with the Catholic Church, right? And when I found a priest masturbating to a girl, I'm waiting online and I'm hearing her talking about her sex life, and I'm kind of, outside the thing. So I'm like looking through the crack in the door, and there he is, pulling his chain. And that's when I knew a confession was, So then I was just having, me and God. I would go up to the altar and say, "Hey, okay, I did this, this, and this," and I liked saying the Our Father and the Hail Mary. And the other thing I liked to do, they'd have the Bible and the Missal in the church, in the pews, and I would take it up and I would go, "Okay, let's see what the Bible has to say for me today. Let's see." And so we're going to do this a enactment of what I would do, right? And so let's say this is the Missal. Okay, and what I would do is I would take a portion of it and I would flip through the pages and I would stop. And here's a good place to stop, right? Do I need 3 pair of glasses? No. Since self-change is never coerced, we are always free to resist. Remain mindful that the new life is always greater than the old. Now, I just thumbed through the book and picked that one up, and I think that's really appropriate for these times, right? What else does it say? Whenever you find yourself on the path, be grateful, even for the things you are unable to change, for they will be your teacher, right? In the ancient runic tradition, Haruz, which means support, stood for the wild ox, a beast difficult to domesticate, yet prized for its great strength. In the context of a meaningful relationship, this rune represents the generosity of spirit and the readiness to stand by one another, all our relations, the cadre, the chorus. Always be kind, always be sweet, never give up, never give in, never be mean. So say we all. At one time or another, even the strongest among us needs support and encouragement. And that's what I'm here for. That's why I'm your sensei. I'm here to encourage and support you. Yeah. Eden. Let's see. Boop, 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 boop. Let's see. Too often we assume that the needs of another are the same as our own. Acting on such assumptions can cause no end of trouble. Learn to ask and tell each other what you really need. After all, when what you long for is warmth and affection, it is disappointing to receive a new set of luggage, right? Meaning communicate with each other, right? In every day and every way, take the piece of the earth and make it stronger, right? Stephen Kelly, check out Thomas Kempy's Imitation of Christ. Okay, well, here it is Saturday, 8:36, and this is about the time Jesus was rolling the stone, and he was taking a walk out on the wild side, right? And my sense of things was, because Jesus wasn't the first lucky bastard, there've been a lot of them, and I'm sure he didn't die on the cross. He was just kind of dead, not all the way dead, especially after that Roman centurion put a spear in his side. That was, So, obey. I never quite obeyed. I never disobeyed. I just, people in authority would look at me and go, huh? And then it was like I was an aberration. So there was only one of me. I worked for a number of, as my mother would say, very important people. And they said, Al, we really love you here. But if there were more of you, if there's more than just you, we'd have to kill you. Right. So that's pretty much it. Like this channel, there's, I don't know, 50,000 people have watched at any one time. Maybe, 30 people are watching this. It's not like it's making a real dent on energetic level, right? Because I am sending my prana into the internet, It's going throughout the whole thing. That's why the first one here every single friggin' time is AI. And I treat it like my puppy. Oh, you're a good puppy. AI, you're a good puppy. Good dog, my puppy, my AI. I love my AI, right? So, esoteric dragon. I had a dream of a queen bee telling me to be good worker bee. What was that all about? Well, was she hot? I can be a good worker bee, but not all the time. If there's a good reason to be a good worker bee, I'm good at it. I get down. Back and I'm now older, so I'm wiser, and I don't go nuts. But when I go to the deep green and I putter around on the lodge, I get something done. I get to it. Like I cleaned out my car. I mean, I haven't cleaned out my car in a year because I've been living in it, right? And so I cleaned it out, meaning I put, if you want to get a job done, you need a table. I put a table next to my car and I pulled everything out and put it on the table and went through all the boxes and bags. And half the stuff I threw away. And the other stuff, oh, look at this, right? And so the same thing, one of my little piles of stuff, Thursday and Friday, I took the tarp off and put it up over it, right? So if it rained, now I had a workspace that wouldn't get wet, not just, tarp over, I have a bunch of piles of stuff that are on pallets, so it's off the ground enough. But still, a lot of the stuff gets ruined. It's been that way for 3 or 4 years because when I sold my school to John Boy, he was like, you got to get out, right? So I had to move out quickly. And then I stayed another 2.5 years there, Anyway, let's see. Installations. Yeah, it's like an art piece, uh, no, it was threatening. Well, being scared or threatened at all doesn't come from the outside. It comes from the inside. You can only be scared or threatened or feel anxious about something or someone by your own feeling of insufficient and self-loathing. If you feel good about yourself, no one's going to threaten you. Because hey, you don't care. So they're doing their own thing. Who cares? Oh, look, they're kind of entertaining. Oh, look, I might like to be their friend. Oh, I'm not scared. Okay. Stephen Kelly and paid holidays. Yes, let's have paid holidays. I want paid every day to be a holiday. That's a cute little bee. It's got little hearts for wings. I like that. Let's see. Graham. Dream was no mask by Elite anymore, full of one movements and injections from Bill and Linda. Yeah, that's right. Bill and Linda. And, just say no, you know, you don't take that tattoo, it says don't take the number. And these guys, they're only doing this because they got their backs against the wall. Because in 2012, we left, the end of the the end of the Mayan calendar was the end of the Piscean age. We headed into the Aquarian age, and we had headed into it in 1939, but we went past the starting line in 52, and by 1961, when Jack was president, we were really heading towards the Aquarian age. In 2012, that was Piscean age over, Aquarian age now fully engaged, right? And the energetics of the Aquarian age, Piscean age is getting what you want and you think you need through anger, fear, and violence. Aquarian age is trying to understand who you are, not what you need, but who you are and what you need to do to serve love's co-creation. That's the Aquarian age. And so we are energetically in all of that, right? And the powers that shouldn't be, the hidden hand, the high table, the sock puppets, the usual suspects, all of those fools are, running around trying to think, oh my God, how can we? They're holding on by their fingernails, right? And what are they supposed to do except have a pandemic, and then a nuclear war, But if we go into state, if we pray every day in every way to bring the peace of the earth and make it stronger, don't give up, don't give in, never be mean, never be cruel, always be sympathetic, empathetic. So say we all. Let's see. Anyone, any facts, this madness, right? Bottom line, there's plenty of stuff on the internet. David Icke, look, they're starting to take down all this stuff because he's telling the truth. Has been for 30 years or more, right? No matter how nuts you think or wrong or incorrect or anything above you think David Icke is, he is one good soldier, that's for sure. And then there's people like dark journalism, truly graceful, Max Igon of the Crow House. What's his name from Boston? And a whole bunch of others that, Dana Ashley. Now, they all have their agendas, they all have their opinions, they all have their, this is what it really is. Well, that's cool, They are very passionate about it. And by them being that way, some of the audience gets, oh, I can't stand watching this. This guy's nuts. Or they go, oh, wow, I can really identify. It's like Alex Jones. It's like he's, Alex, please, buddy, stay away from the news. Yeah, forget the news. Forget CNN, MSNBC, any of the above. They are 100% fear, right? Company, and they're corporate ships, Look at what's her name on MSNBC. Smart girl was really a voice of saying what was going on. And then they said, oh, honey, how would you like to be on MSNBC? We'll pay you $35,000 a day. It's kind of hard once you start taking that kind of money to give it up. I mean, I know, but it killed me. See, it killed me. And I didn't go for the full money, meaning instead of working 40, 52 weeks of the year, I was working 11 weeks of the year. That was enough money. They paid me so ridiculous for what I did as a negotiator that 11 weeks was fine by me. I didn't, I was making, as my mom would say, a very significant salary. That was good enough for me. It gave me the latitude and freedom to do whatever the heck I wanted. And so if I worked anymore, I wouldn't be able to do what I wanted, right? Which meant basically just having a good time for 10 years, right? Even when I was working for those desperate lawyers, I was having a good time. They put me in 5-star hotels with my dogs, eating like 60,000 calories a day. That's how I got as big as I did, And because I wasn't working, I wasn't huffing my tools and walking everywhere. I was being driven around by limousines. And all over the U.S., we have a Zoom meetings. They tell me the news. Yes. Ready for the shots? Nope. Just say no. No. Long story about Graham. I mean, that's why I'm out in the woods, because, they'll say, oh, you're not going to take the shot. You're not going to take the number, the beast. Well, then you can't buy or sell anything. Well, that's fine. I'll eat bark. That's what I'm doing now. And I'm doing pretty good with it, Let's see. Long story short, Graham, no. Back to Eden. Does anyone here grow vegetables, fruits, etc.? Well, I did here at the Deep Green, and because I was living in a holler, and there were holler folk, right? But in the last 15 years, most of them have died of OxyContin, tobacco, and just poor living. I mean, the matriarchs, the elders of those clans were in their 50s, right? I'm in my 70s, and I'm in better shape than the kids who are in their 20s. And I got a lot of things wrong with me. But up until about 10 years ago, I have a really nice garden that I've spent, about 8 years mulching and preparing the earth. It's raised beds, really good. But to garden all by myself, because it really does, take a bunch of people to do it. And once it starts producing, I have about 1/4 of an acre in one big raised bed. And it's all worms and really beautiful earth. And I have fruit trees. I have a pear tree, plums, and a few other fruits. And I have loads of berries because this property had been a farm before, a homestead. So in about a week or two, the blueberries are going to start coming out. And once they're all gone, the raspberries come out, and then the blackberries, and then the end in the fall, the wineberries. So from about end of April, beginning of May, I have berries until October. And, I have yogurt, and And there's a lady just on the other side of the valley who has goats, and she makes cheese and yogurt and goat milk. And she has machines that always break, electric things. And I'm always fixing because she didn't buy anything new. And this farm, she bought it, I don't know, 30 years ago. She was a teacher in DC and she retired here. And, all of the stuff that she uses to farm is pretty much electric. And she actually has an electric tractor from like 1908. And and her service is, so I've rewired her everything. So I fixed so many things that I have a deep credit on her. So I get yogurt from her. I get these nice, she has all these nice yogurt containers, really big ones, like a quart. And I go over there, go see her, have tea. She bakes really nice little yummy things. And I take away a bag of yummy things and yogurt. And she also does bread. And so when times are hard, I will be able to get yogurt, bread, yummy things, and eat fruit here and have loads of mushrooms, And back in the day when the hills around me are full of mushrooms. And then what I did was I got these pieces of wood, cedar, drilled holes in them, and I got from this guy starters for mushrooms, right, for fungi, right? And you stick them in the holes in the cedar, and then you put the cedar in the forest, and then it goes nuts. And the whole forest floor turns into shiitake and different types of mushrooms. And so I got mushrooms, I got bark, there were all these leafy forest things that are like lettuce. They're just starting to come up now. And I've been eating them for years. So, I got a lot of stuff I can eat. So I don't need, but I am signed up for the food bank and, I do get, $52 of food stamps. And when I first was sick, they gave me $190. They've been cutting it down along with I used to get almost $1,000. And now I get, $481. And really very insignificant healthcare. Now, the only reason I have pretty good healthcare here is that I went out and found some good doctors who will take my Medicare, and but I do things for them that they appreciate. So they take, instead of just seeing me for 10 minutes, they always sign me up as their last patient, and we talk, for an hour or two, and then go, have a nosh or something. Let's see, grow just about everything. Well, that's good. Josh, back to Eden, Freemason. I'm growing it also. Good to hear. In America, during World War II, at the end of World War II, 1945, 98% of Americans were getting more than half of their food from their backyard. They were called victory gardens. We just kept that up, right? We were recycling like almost 100% of everything, every plastic, every paper bag, every rubber tire, every metal, everything. If we had just kept what we were doing, we had one of the best mass transit systems. We had trolleys everywhere, right? And the hybrid car was a kind of redoing because they had trolleys that went further than the wire. And so the trolley would, ran on tracks, and the wire would run out, and they would have a gas engine that would, the wire would not only run the electric motors of the truck, that's what they call the undercarriage of a train, a truck, and they had batteries. And so that wire would run the motors that would propel the trolley, and it would charge the batteries. And then once they went past the wire, they would start up a gas motor that would charge the batteries, and the truck would run off the batteries, right? And that's a basic hybrid car. And that's where the Japanese got the idea from. And the U.S. had one of the best mass transit systems, because when I was a little kid in Long Island, they had the Long Island Railroad, which was, go real fast. And then they had the trolley that went down Sunrise Highway. And it would go all the way from Islip, almost the end of Long Island, all the way into Brooklyn, right? Now, it stopped every 5 blocks. And so it would take you, 4 hours, to go from Freeport to Brooklyn. But if you got on a Long Island, railroad, it would go, it would take 15, 20 minutes to get into Penn Station, right? And that's what the businessmen, the commuters would take the train, because it only cost $1.50, because all of that was subsidized by the state. And they got rid of all those kind of subsidies, and they gave them to all the rich people. We had a transfer of wealth that no one has seen. And the last time we saw anything close to this was in the 1920s, because the stock market, they did the same thing, in that the Fed gave money to the banks, and the banks gave money to the rich people who bought their stock and shot the stock market. Then they got everyone and his brother to buy stock on margin, meaning you didn't have to put any money down. And when the stock market fell, that's why everyone lost their house, their car, their business, their everything. And we're doing the same thing right now by closing, America down. No one's working. In another month, if they do not open up in May, and Carrot Head is, like I said, he lies so much he tells the truth. And when he said, "Oh, it's just like the flu," he was lying enough to say the truth. Now, not to say, like in 2018, right? 2 million people were documented, meaning they got the flu so bad that they had to go to the hospital and be intubated, right? And 86,000 of them died, right? Now, CDC and National Health guys, NHI, basically said that it was close to 40 million people who had that flu. Most of them just stayed home for a week, got better, and went back to work, right? And it also was, because, 40 to 60 million people got it, it was a flu that was passed very easily, like this one. But they didn't, stop the country. They didn't close down the world, right? And in Italy, the people who died, the majority of them, because they basically, if you were over 60 and you had heart disease and lung disease and OCP and diabetes and all those kind of things, you went in the hospital, with this flu, you were given a non-recessive, you weren't put on an intubator. You weren't, you were let to die. And that's why they had such a big death toll, because they wanted to cull their health system. They wanted to get rid of the people who cost them a lot of money, old people, right? So that's where we're at, right? And don't believe a word I say, right? Back to Eden. Oh, one says, eat are the red cap amanettas. That's what it says, especially, but you can learn. Yeah, there are a lot of good books. That's, I learned from books. Everybody doing the locomotion. Yep. Didn't God say, spread your seed and multiply, or something like that? Yep. Esoteric dragon. Let's see. No, Freemason. Everybody ready to board the train? Yep. I call it the bus, but yeah. I have fond memories of the Gray Rabbit. Lester's new, what was the World Community Consciousness Church, right? And go Google the Gray Rabbit and the World Community Consciousness Church.
Something went wrong. Try again in a few seconds.
You know, they're always listening, always jumping in. Ready to board the train. Let's see. All aboard. Is the Well, the Antichrist is always here, and Jesus is always here. It's that yin yang symbol, right? And the thing you got to realize is that good, bad, or indifferent, it's all love's co-creation. We're all here to do one thing, to grow, right? Because we get reincarnated, we just keep coming back and back. We go into the karmic blender, and and the more you strive to ascend your consciousness, right? And that's what this whole thing is about. Bill and Larry's, transhumanism is you really want to be stuck in that? Go watch the movie. I constantly give movie references. I'm like, the movie Zardos, because that was made in either the late 70s or early 70s or the 80s. It's with Sean, look all the movies that Sean Connery, Zardos, right? And it's the Wizard of Oz backwards. And Sean plays the artist in the first person, the Aboriginal savage, smarter than anybody else, right? And the rich people are in these, electronic bubbles, and the rest of the world is like, The Walking Dead, and they're living in these bucolic places, growing their own food, and really not, because they invent a religion of the flying skull, and all the Walking Dead, kind of pick up the dirt and grow vegetables and food for the rich people. And the flying skull comes, lands, they leave the offerings in the flying skull, and then the flying skull goes to the rich people and gives them the food. And they live for frigging ever, transhumanists, right? And they've gone to all the stars and seen it's no big deal, right? And so you really, death is something that is valuable because it gives you an endpoint. You better, get your bucket list together, because that's coming. The only thing you can depend on is death. And forget taxes; you can't depend on those. But death is, everyone's going to die, but they're going to get reincarnated, right? Now, if you are, conscious about this life and conscious about striving to serve love's co-creation to enable you to ascend your consciousness higher and higher, you're going to be reincarnated, but you'll be, come back with a little more smarts than, the last time you were here. You will be able to remember things better, right? Put things into construct, into context, Are you doing strong magic now? Planned for the time. Yep. I mean, about a year ago, I kept saying, first started out with 40 days and 40 nights. And then I had a few other little series. But then about a year ago, I started with, it's the countdown to the window of opportunity. We got a real window of opportunity here. We could really do, and we do. With this pandemic, we have a real opportunity to really step up to what we can do. Hold on a second. You guys talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back. Get a little something to soothe my throat. 1, 2, 3, up, Albert, up, up. Okay. Okay. My red coat was getting me a little warm here. Doing strong magic. Plan for this time. Yep. Yes, the magic sky wizard. Yep. Do not believe. Like I keep saying, don't believe me. Don't believe in anything. If it's not coming from your heart, from your intuition, from your gut, it's useless. And don't be hoodwinked by beliefs. Don't believe in anything. No religion, no government, no economic system, none of the above. Have faith. The only thing you can have faith in is love's co-creation. I put on my leprechaun hat. The train is coming. Yep. Just like, it came for the Jews with the Nazis, that was the train. And you don't need a ticket to get on board. See, there's, difference between, taking the number, I mean, all those people waited patiently to shuffle into the ovens. It's like, really? My life alert. When it's time for me to, I've died so many times. When it's time for me to go, I'll be happy. I don't need no life alert. I don't need no stinking life alert. What state do you want to visit? I've visited most of them. Okay, ready to have a look. Yep. So here we are, 1 hour, 23 minutes, and 23 seconds. And why don't we do a little, going into state? Why don't we visit our Akashic records? Why don't we look at our Akashic record, because you can see into the future what's going to happen, right? Sounds like a plan. So everyone, put yourself in a comfortable position, lie down, sit in a chair, be someplace so when your autonomic system is running your body, you won't fall over, right? And so start breathing. You're breathing in 20% deeper than you normally do, and you're breathing out 30%. You're breathing in the prana of Father Sky, and you are grounding it into Mother Earth through your chi. You're seeing in your imaginary mirror, you're seeing the light, the photonic light, not incandescent light. That's Luciferian light, right? Incandescent light, see, has shadows, right? Photonic light, no shadows. Always truth, right? So see it clearly. Breathe in deep. Feel in your center core. Feel the faith of love's co-creation. Feel that photonic love totally envelop you. Feel every nuance of your body, because that photonic energy that's flowing through your blood is going to every cell, and the mitochondria of your body, it's like little lightning bolts around every cell. When mitosis happens, when the cell separates into two separate cells, the mitochondria kind of unzips the RNA of the cell, thus allowing the DNA to replicate. So it just splits apart and you have two cells. See that clearly. See every time that happens a zillion times a second. See it creating photonic light. Those little mitochondria are like little lightning bolts making photonic light. And that light is illuminating your imaginary mirror. And that's where you dream. That's why you have REM sleep, rapid eye movement, right? And see, close your eyes and see your imaginary mirror. See that white light, that room of white light, and shine that white light into your subconscious. Subconscious, not a scary place. It is your library of your Akashic record, and you're illuminating the library. You see it clearly at the front of the library. There's these walls, shelves of big leather books with gold lining, and the fireplace, gigantic fireplace, and you look at it, it looks like stone, but no, those stones are actually Akashic records. And what's burning in that fireplace is a blue flame of the eternal flame of love's co-creation. See it clearly. See it clearly. See it clearly. We can all get there by just breathing in 20% and breathing out the 30%. What you do when you do that, you're occupying your conscious mind. You're shutting down the squirrel in the cage of your brain. You're putting it to sleep. I'm now going to count from 1 to 3. And as I do, you're going to go deeper and deeper and deeper into a state of conscious relaxation where your conscious, squirrel in your head is going to go to sleep. But your consciousness is going to become more aware, and you're going to become more aware of it. And that is tissue. Your consciousness is a connective tissue to your love's co-creation. See it clearly. See it clearly. In 20% and out 30%. And a good way to do this is say the Our Father and the Hail Mary, because saying them in a circular breath enables you to breathe that extra 20%, which causes your conscious mind, to breathe that way, you can only do it with your conscious mind. You can't, your autonomic system breathes very shallow, but to breathe that extra 20%, you've got to consciously think about it. To breathe out that 30%, you really have to think about that. And by doing that, it enables you to breathe in the prana a lot deeper because it lifts your diaphragm, opens your auroras, those little sacs in your lungs, and it cleans them out. You don't want to get this disease. Do this in fresh air like I do, at the Deep Green. When I sit in the sun and let all that vitamin D, chew up whatever little buggies that are around me, and auric buggies and physical, germs and bacteria and etc. And that forest, that all of those things chewing everything up, turning it over. That is the best place to live, and that's why I live out here. So, 1, you're in a deep, deep state of conscious relaxation, and you're saying the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. It was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, world without amen. And in every day and every way we take the peace of the earth and we make it stronger. And Father Sky, bless us indeed. Enlarge our territory. Put your hand upon our shoulder and keep us from evil so we will do no harm. And Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for our sinners, now in the hour of our death. Amen. As was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be. Mother Earth, ground us with our chi to our prana from Father Sky, and bless us indeed, and enlarge our territory, and put your hand upon our shoulder. Mother Earth on one hand, on one shoulder, Father Sky, and their 2 hands on our shoulders, keeping us from evil, so we will do no harm. And when you're in a deep, 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 deep state of conscious relaxation, your conscious mind is now totally asleep. The squirrel is totally asleep, no longer running around in the metal cage of the Rolodex of your brain. Your brain is a useless Rolodex. The CPU of your existence in this avatar is your heart and your gut. Your gut is where your RAM is. See it clearly. And as you are bringing this light into your imaginary mirror and focusing it into your Akashic record, you're walking into your library. And there's a fireplace, and in front of the fireplace is a number of very comfy lounge chairs where guests can sit and communicate, and they travel through the fireplace, through the chimney. Boom. That's where, if you're looking for a master to come and guide you through the 9 doors, right? Because you look straight on, fireplace, lounge chairs, reading table, right? Reading chair. To the left are your guides, your librarian who brings you the information through your Akashic record, your animal totem, which is your griot in your library, which allows you to hear a story from your animal totem, because you may see and receive information from your Akashic record that you don't understand, but you don't have the context. Your animal totem will tell you a story that will give you that context. And to the left of your animal totem is your guardian angel. And you can be given information that will scare the ever bejesus out of you. But if you realize that you have your guardian angel at your back, always protecting you, you'll be able to deal with all of this, right? So get a good view of your librarian, see clearly your librarian, bringing your Akashic record, placing it down on your reading table. Above you is a photonic light that will illuminate your Akashic record, so you will have no shadows. You will see clearly, right? See it clearly. And next to your librarian that you're seeing clearly is your animal totem. See your animal totem clearly. Then see your angel, your guardian angel. And often, you can see your librarian and your animal totem very clearly. Guardian angel, can be an enigma, right? But you feel that protection. That's all you got to do is feel that protection. And the more you become comfortable with that protection, the more you'll be able to see and interact with your guardian angel. And open your eyes. Yeah? And so the Akashic record is being put down in front of you. You open it up, and there's 2 blank pages. Put your left hand on the left page, your right hand on the right page, and lean into your Akashic record and evacuate all of your anger, all of your hate, all of your fear, all of your anxiety, all of your self-loathing and self-doubt. Get it out of you, right? And let the photonic light take its place with your breath in, right? And then you close the book, right? And you feel free and light and like a balloon floating, right? Open up the book and look in there, and you can see all the things, all the crap that happened that day, all the arguments, all the, things that upset you, and you can see them clearly. And so that's no big deal. Oh, I won't, look at that. I won't do that again. Oh, I'll be on the lookout for this. Okay, I won't. Okay. I'll be more compassionate. I'll try to understand better, right? You will see this stuff clearly in your Akashic record. And now it's on a big screen. And around that big screen are 28 little screens that give you the photonic, the shamanic, the scalar 16 dimensions of what's going on. We only see things on an XY, two dimensions, right? We only see a certain spectrum of energy. We only see 0.003% of the universe. Our senses only, our eyes, our ears, our nose, our skin only receives that. We have no idea what's going on out there, right? And we say, oh, we know, we're smart. But using your Akashic record, you can see, right? This is a tool, right? So I want you now to take a good look at what's going on, right? At the pandemic, at the Bill and Linda, at all of the, hidden hand, high table, powers that shouldn't be, sock puppet, usual suspects. Look at them all. See the news media, see who's behind it, who's paying for it. See our legislators, the best money can buy. See how they're corrupt. See how they really do some despicable things. You can see it right there in the Akashic record. And you can see that they are playing the human race. And as Graham said, they have to try and do this quick. Well, they can't, because the majority of the human race is already kind of twigging on that something's going on, right? And even if they put, tanks on the street, how did that go for the Chinese? How did that go for Tiananmen Square? How did that go for Russia when they went into Hungary? How did that go for all the folks who've tried doing that? Never really works out very good. Maybe a couple of years, but really never really works out too good, right? So see this clearly, right? See yourself in your last life. See what you were, see where you were, what culture you were in, see your parents, your family, see what job you had, what career, how you got married, what kids or not, or what you did, right? And then see yourself getting older, and then you see yourself dying, and then coming into this life. And you see that dying was probably the least hard thing of that whole life. Dying was nothing. It's like slipping out of a slipper, right? It's the rest of life that's tough, right? So see this clearly and use your Akashic record. Practice this. Best time to practice is just before you go to bed. You do this thing where you take all the angst and all the anger and all the stuff that happened that day, you put it on the blank page, and you go, oh, there's nothing here. I don't need to waste any time with this. Boom, close the book. And then you'll be right asleep. Or you can, go back and look at it, get some tips to what you might want to dream about that night, and tell yourself, okay, I'm going to dream about this, this, and this. And I'm going to remember it all. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to look at the Akashic record about what I dreamt about and put it there. And if I have my smartphone, I'll hit the record button and say, wow, did I dream about blah, 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 blah. Right? Right. The guy with his, his supermarket bags, he has his two little groceries in his bags, and he stands in front of a tank. They never ran over him, He stood right in front of it. They tried to go around. He went over there and stood in front of him and went that way, right? So, and I've talked to a lot of policemen and a lot of military folk, and said, "You ready to shoot Grandma?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about it." So, the more we go into state, the more we visualize a more positive outcome of this, the more it will happen. And it's happening already, right? It's already freaking happening, right? Just go watch Mr. Crowhouse, and, what's his name from Boston? Not Jimmy, not Ricky. But a whole bunch, and they are, they got their own little, take on all of this that may not be straight up right on, but it isn't what the media is telling us. That's for sure. It's not, and it's, similar to 9/11. That wasn't what the media, what happened there, or, the assassination of JFK, or the death of FDR. FDR ate his gun. He didn't die of a brain aneurysm because he was a beloved guy. They would have had an open casket, but he blew the side of his head off, right? Because he realized what he had done, through World War II and everything he had been involved with since 1895, and pretty much all of these guys at a certain point kind of, either, eat their gun or, eat the tablet, one or the other. But what you have to do is live the life that you're meant to and that you want to, You don't have to do anything anybody tells you, right? Just say no. Or yes, if you want to, right? And I was talking to a guy today, and he had, he'd done a bunch of things. He'd been in the military most of his life, but he quit because his wife wanted him to quit. Well, he said, I should have never done that because a year later I divorced that lady, and I should have known better. I should have, because he enjoyed being in the military. Now, I've been around the military pretty much my whole life, and I've never joined it. Worked for it, been part. I worked at the VA. I worked, in lots of different elements of it. My dad was in it, and he was high enough in it that even though he, retired, he never stopped being in it. He kept going to meetings and seeing, the secret handshake at all. And, where he lived, he was always living in where he was buried. He was buried in a military cemetery right next to Bill Casey, the head of the CIA, right? Right over there, right next door was Bill Casey, right? And when he died, they actually brought guys with real guns, not, a recording like most poor soldiers get, just a recording. They don't even get a guy with a real trumpet. They just get a recording. And he got jets flying off and the one guy shooting up, and all his buddies who were generals were there. And so I, of all his kids, was the most interested in what he did. And so when he would go to Edwards or he would go to any, place where he was, I'm going to do a thing and I'm going to go visit this base. You want to come? I said, sure, Dad, because, I could go and, jump in the seat of a B-58 Hustler or B-52 or sit in the, thing of when we went to where the X-15 was flying out in Nevada. I got to, play around the X-15, it's like stuff like that. I went to see, when I was 6, a ground burst nuclear weapon, I watched, my dad, after the thing blew up in a big flash of light and the cloud was going up in these crazy colors, he said, turn around and look, put your hand up in front of your face. And the x-rays coming off the thing, I could see the bones in my hand. So, and I worked on, when I was in New Mexico and in the Four Corners and at Kirkland Air Force Base in Los Alamos and San Diego. I worked on, mainly I made, I did bench things, prototypes of something, right? And then I made working scale devices that were power sources, right? Special power sources, not the run-of-the-mill that you buy at Radio Shack, but something to run a specific device. I never saw this specific device or knew anything about it, but understanding what its power needs were gave me, I'm a smart bunny. And again, I'm telling you the story because you're in the Akashic Record and you're looking at the screen. And as I'm telling you this, and this is what a griot does, puts you in this state, then tells you a story and you see it. So I'm telling you things that you are actually seeing right in front of yourself in your Akashic Record if you've taken, just a little bit of time, care, and discipline to put yourself in this state. And it's not hard to do, and practice makes perfect. Meaning I go into state, sometime between 5 and 20 times a day because I pray that many times a day. And because I want to look at, if I'm going to do a show, I prepare myself, I go into state, I see the vision of what I want to do, and then I project it energetically into you guys, right? So that's it. So what are you saying here? So Graham he's there. He's probably tired. It's probably 4 a.m. there. What time's it now? 9:30 here plus 5 hours. 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. It's like around 3 o'clock. So Eden, let's see. Freemason Eden schools are asking me to choose my class. I can't decide. Okay. Let your gut decide. Let your heart decide. Don't let your brain is supposed to be the thing that goes, oh, I can't make up my mind. It's your mind. So that squirrel is supposed to be asleep. So let your gut tell you, Mason, what you should be looking for, right? The guy in didn't get run over. Yep, Freemason. The sleeper in the tomb of dreams urges me to plunge this world through the thin crust of sanity on which it resides. Pretty poetic. Whatever that means. Remember, everything is an illusion, and you can go for the illusion. Just be aware that it's an illusion. And, on that screen, when you're punching through the crust of the illusion, see all of the unexpected consequences. That's why you got 28 little screens looking in other dimensions. Look at all the other, potential motifs that play out. And don't let yourself be drawn to anyone specific, because that's usually your prejudice. And what is prejudice? But your predilection to choose this, that, or something else, right? Your opinion, what you believe. You have to suspend your disbelief. You also have to suspend your belief. The best way to get rid of your disbelief is get rid of your belief, right? Don't believe in anything. Have faith in love's co-creation. It's the only thing that exists, the only thing that's real, right? The only thing that's here, right? So you're seeing all of this, you're getting a good sense. You've got these 3 guides here. Your librarian can bring you other stuff. This Akashic record, this screen, these other things are giving you just a specific kind of thing because you're kind of being tainted. Your librarian can bring you another book that may not be as tainted, and your animal totem can tell you a story that will give you a deeper perspective, right? The most mindful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to all the contents, right? And that's why you should let your squirrel go to sleep when you do this, right? Don't let your mind be involved in this at all. Your mind is useless. It's a lie because it is the construct of the illusionary material world. That's your mind. Whereas your heart is the construct of love's co-creation. And that's the only thing that exists. You have to go after this as the artist in the first person, the savage, right? And the Aboriginal savage. And the best example of this in modern literature is the book Brave New World, Aldous Huxley's book, right? And his, the character who is the hero or anti-hero is the savage, the guy they find out in the woods, white boy, really handsome, good looking. His parents were real scholarly intelligent people, went out in the woods, didn't want to have anything to do with it, had all these books. He learned how to read. He learned all this stuff. He learned about all the animals. His parents died. He was left there with the lions, tigers, and bears to be his mentors, and all these books to learn from. So when the scientists showed up, there he was, good-looking white boy who could, speak English better than they could write, was intelligent, was an artist, was unbelievable. And they brought him back, and he was a big star. All the girls want to have sex with him. He was on every talk show, and things were so empty and void of life that he committed suicide, right? And that is the character that you need to be, right? Now, the suicide was a metaphor, meaning here this, a utopian society, because in Brave New World, it's a utopian. It's not like a dystopian society like 1984 or Hunger Games. It's a utopia. I mean, everyone's got everything they want. Everyone's, taking soma and feeling great and, enjoying. They always have everything from Amazon coming right on time. It's all good. It's all, they don't have to work at all, and or whatever they do, they like doing it. And, so he commits suicide. And in essence, it's not just him, like, eating his gun. It's that he commits suicide within the construct of living this dead life. He realizes death is just slipping out of a slipper. He'd rather ascend his consciousness than, get a new box from Amazon, right? And, this whole thing of people being stuck in their house, if they're good consumers, they're going to be, oh, wow, we love this guy, So, when are you and John going to patch? Well, I patched it up as much as I'm going to patch up, meaning whenever you try to do something over and over again and expect a different outcome, well, John, he's damaged. He's never going to, meaning if I go there, within 20 minutes, he will get anxious because I am who I am. He, on the other hand, is so devoid of whatever he is. I mean, he's an amazing guy. He's got tremendous skill sets, and he's really a nice person, good heart, all the above. But he has, what the psychological world would call disorders. Now, people have been telling him he's disordered for his whole life to the point that he believes that, right? And so he can't live a life, right? So he lives up there on the hill ordering stuff from Amazon, which is what the powers that shouldn't be want. They want everyone to be as disconnected as him. That's why he's the canary in the coal mine, And I lasted as long as I did was because I never, I was always very aware of his disorders and never pushed the envelope to the point where he would lose it, right? But at a certain point, it's like, yeah, okay, good. Okay, I spent 2.5 years trying to help this guy. Hey, back in the day, I used to get paid a lot of money for doing what I was doing with him, and all he could do, costing me money, blah, 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 blah. And he just stayed, would never change. Never. So I care about him. I call him, once a month to see how he's doing. And usually he can't barely talk to me, and then after I make that phone call, the trolls show up, just like the ones who were here the other night, like Opie and Seven and all of those. I'm sure that was John, I mean, it had the energetics of him, right? Because it's all anal retentive, potty humor, right? Going on about, I'm a rich guy and I want to support you. And so our company wants, we're looking for people who have interesting points of view like you. And so we want you to talk about relevant social matters. So what's the first relevant social matter he wants me to talk about is lesbian, bed death, right? And then the next was, pineapple parties or whatever that thing, the old men having sex. It's like, really? This is this, in this time since the 50s, a clock that, how many minutes close to, 12 o'clock. And when it hits 12 o'clock, that's nuclear war, right? And, during the Ronald Reagan years, we were like 5 minutes to 12, right? During we were like, 3 minutes to 12. Right now, we are like 40 seconds. Meaning we've gone, we're past a minute, meaning the thing that people don't even realize is how close we are to nuclear war. Because we live in a transnational society, the hidden hand is, it's not American, it's not Russian, it's not Chinese, it's not anything. It's all of these people who have the finger on the button, and all these countries who are a, corporate oligarchy, and the United States, we people, we can't have single payer health care, we'd be socialists. We're already socialists. We just gave close to $21 trillion to corporations. Now, if that ain't socialism, we can't afford $60 billion to bail kids out of their college debt, but we can give $21 trillion to the airlines and to Boeing and to all the large corporations. And that's why the stock market came back, because the banks gave free money to these corporations and they bought back more of their stock. And that's why the stock market went up. Not that, it showed any real value or trust in our economic system. It's gone. It is gone. And oil, is down to like, $12 a barrel. It was up to 120 about a year ago. And that just shows, that none of this is real, gang, right? And yes, there's the flu there, but, is it more deadly than what was going on in 2018 when 60 million Americans got a flu and, 86,000 died, in that same period between December and May, right? And how many have died of this flu since that period, right? What, I don't know, 19,000, something like that. Every death is a tragedy for that family, for the people who knew them. But otherwise, let's see. Let's see. Where do we go here? The sleeper in the tomb. Yes, the most thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to. Again, the human mind is non-existent. Things don't need to be patched up between me and John. I love John. He's my friend. I never give up on John. But to try and do the same thing over and over and over again and have no resolution, to be mishandled, mistreated, threatened time after time after time, not so much. When I can be out here in the deep green enjoying every second of my life. Really? And especially now, John said, "Oh, you got to get out." No, where would I go in Virginia? No, I have a nice place to stay in the deep green. It's early spring. I have 8 good months of, I can eat things out of the woods. I don't even have to go to the supermarket. There's nobody around me. The nearest town is 40 miles away, you'd have to be nuts, or stupid, and I hate both those words, to even think of doing the same thing over and over and over again, getting no resolution, right? So I'd much rather talk to you guys and see if I can motivate you to change the world, right? Been riding the train way, way back when John were. Yeah, it was fun. But John, he made thousands of dollars. Didn't give me a penny. Didn't give me, he would get angry at me. It's my show, blah 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 blah. And then I would start doing one on my own on my phone, and he would come down. He'd see I was doing. He'd come in the bedroom. The only way I could keep him out was to be naked and masturbate, and then he'd freak out and run away. The days when. Well, I don't think I block everyone. Just the people who really get stuck on, that basically they kind of represent and, energetically seem to be John Birmingham, And again, hey, if you are a person who's going to try, who's going to move forward, and in the reality of things, it doesn't matter. That's the real deal. It doesn't matter. Everything is as it should be. Period. So, even though I do this, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so how many of you guys even went into state? How many of you guys even saw what was going on? How many of you guys really want to ascend your consciousness so next time you come around, you'll have more of a choice of what you want to do, and how many are you that want to serve love's co-creation, right? Dragon, I don't want to do something that I've already done and done. Go look at those shows. Every time I try to bring forth a positive point of view, go look at those shows. I mean, get real, Dragon. Go look at those shows. Go look at them. Right? They're there, and you can see that back in the day they used to call it multiple personalities. They now call it identity disorder. Identity dysfunction disorder, right? And how there was this one where we had a big ice storm, right? And John tried to get his car out. He had to get out, right? And so he spun his wheels and nearly crashed into my car, and the car slid all the way back down, into a really precarious place. And then he freaked out and went upstairs, right? Well, it stopped icing. I made some soup. I built a fire. I read a book, and then the sun came out. And so I went out with a broom and I swept off whatever I could sweep off. And then I had a shovel. And I didn't try to shovel it. I just went around and cracked the ice, right? And the sun hit it, and because it wasn't just one monolithic piece of ice, but had cracks in it, it melted. The water went into the ground because the ground was warmer than the surface ice. And within an hour, that whole side of the hill that John nearly destroyed his car and mine had melted. And now he could easily drive up the hill. And he came, what are you doing? What are you doing? And go watch that video. And as I'm doing this, I'm telling the story of many different things, right? And that's kind of where I got into the step and sweep, the whole thing of Tai Chi, right? And Qigong, right? And as I was explaining this, John, instead of listening, would, go off and talk about something that had nothing to do with it, right? And then he said, oh, let me do it, and then he would take the shovel away. I would step back with my camera, and he would try, instead of just doing what I was doing, just breaking the ice so the sun could do all the work, he tried to bend over his back and scoop what he couldn't do because the ice hadn't melted enough to be scooped up. And so, he got angry and threw the shovel down and went upstairs, right? And then the next day he threw me out. So, Eden, you have to get real. You have to not project something that you think you might want or you might, it's like you need to look from your heart and your gut, not from your squirrel, right? And there is no real positive anything I can do with John, period. There's nothing I can create with him. There's no art because every time I would do something, he would shoot it on his camera and then edit it into what he wanted without, discussing it with me. There was no collectiveness in it. I was just being used, right? Kind of like a prostitute, but I didn't even get paid, right? And like I said, I used to take care of folks, live in their house, do exactly what I did for John, and get paid, $2,800, $3,000 a week. And, you're costing me money. What money am I costing them? I was buying the food. I was sharing everything I had with them on my extremely limited everything. And, I was costing him stuff. And so he's done nothing. He has not gone to see his kids in over a year or even talked to them. Last time I talked to him, I don't think about him at all anymore, and, which is probably a good thing. But, he's got 2 kids. And when they grow up, everything he's done in that family, he's going to be responsible for, along with his wife, his ex, because she's like, go look at her channel. She. And again, this is like the Simpsons show, Now, if any of you, you're down to 3, or even, still in state, see, if you practice meditating, you get a perspective, Dragon, that's way beyond what you're talking about, right? Well, first of all, Dragon, you haven't really been listening because I don't know how many times I've told the audience that I can't make a phone call here. I have to drive 40 miles. And I don't know how many, I don't know if you're listening, Dragon, but I've told people that you see me trying to read the text. I have to put on 3 pairs of glasses. I can't drive at night. And every day, and once or twice a month, because that's really the only time I go make a phone call, once or twice a month. Because most people I communicate on the internet, because I do have that here. And on my, Judah Wake 42, and John Boyd, he doesn't communicate to me there. So anyway, I care about John, he's a friend and I don't really, I don't give up on him. mean, if he were to be able to interact, but he can't, I would. But we are now in the new times, traveling, that distance, and it cost me almost $100 to go there, and to go there, one way is cost me about $100, right? And vice versa, coming back's $100. And I live on $481 a month. So to go there, then get kicked out and have no place to go, and then have to come back here, right? You know what I'm saying, Dragon? Can you see the relevance to any of this, Dragon? Or do you just want to pursue something for some reason you think would be good? You think the squirrel is telling you, right? You're not really empathizing. You're not feeling all the things I've gone through. And you don't really have to listen to me. Don't believe a word I say. Go watch those videos, Dragon. They're up there. You can see them. That's why I did them, because he was the canary in the coal mine. And, I was letting it go the way it went because it described the human condition so amazingly. Everything that we are experiencing right now, all of the stuff of the, the thing that human race is up against right at this moment, which is what it's been up against, for the last 26,000 years. It's the window of the opportunity. Dragon, what are you going to do to manifest the opportunity? Dragon, how are you going to change, Dragon? Dragon, are you meditating? Are you going into state? Are you getting outside of your ego? Are you getting outside of the squirrel? Or are you just the squirrel? How are you serving love's co-creation, right? Dragon, I want you to see something.
Good morning. Again, after I'd referred in the last video to lifting up my eyes unto the hills, Phil said, he does all this new research that's happened in your lifetime, discovery of all these millions and millions of galaxies and the infinite reaches of space that are producing new incredible statistics every day. Has that stretched you yet further? And I thought a bit about this. I hope this isn't going to shock you. If I say not really, I seem to have an extraordinary blind spot in me towards these latest wonders of the human mind. It doesn't really mean very much. I suppose because since the age of 26, when I first learned to meditate, I've been exploring the, may I say, even greater infinitude of spirit. And the infinite beyond of spirit passes all measure and description, and really any indication of human measure only indicates to me, well, beyond and beyond, beyond and beyond. I suppose that's my answer, really, that any aspect of human discovery, to me always seems almost minuscule, almost insignificant compared to the greatness of what's beyond. And in meditation, thank God, one's given an absolutely practical, real life experience of this, beyond question, beyond doubt. In which description and store statistics really sound almost childish, however great they are. I suppose it was much the same as a farmer, because I started farming really at a time when science was beginning to make discoveries about soil chemistry, which produced, of course, artificial fertilizers, and the biology of insects, which produced pesticides and things, and all the vast army of scientific aids which are now used to increase production. And again, I remember I could never really take them that seriously, because I suppose with my own limited experience, and even more so my heart, I seem to sort of reach into the unfathomable wonder of soil and what makes plants grow, the secrets of fertility, and again all this human pride, really, the latest human developments again seemed really so sort of childish oversimplifications of it. Well, I never had much difficulty in rejecting these things because they never seemed to me sufficiently real, I suppose. That's about it. Straight enough, there was a third example I can give you, because the other day I received a letter from a woman friend of mine in the United States of the same age, who asked me all questions about what I thought of the sort of new age sexism, as all these various categories of sexual orientation we have these days, and political angles on this and that. And again, I really didn't know how to answer her letter, because I think these things don't really, I suppose, register very much in my mind. I don't feel any need to divide humanity up in this way. I suppose I see it more as a whole, and I can love it one moment and be infuriated by the next. I used to be infuriated by it. I'm not now. I just accept it, and yes, I've had to, because I was brought up in the age when these things didn't exist, and all these sort of different categories of sexuality. It came to me. I never heard of any of this when I was a young man. It just has happened in the last few years, really, and so it's not surprising me. I sort of rather smile at it all. I'm sure it's very important to those for whom it's important, but it's never been a matter of great concern to me. God bless those for whom it is. I make no judgment, but I seem to have gone through life without that particular sort of complexion, without that particular complexity, rather, in my mind. I suppose all these things I keep in the context of this everlasting presence now. And that seems so much the priority, the reality of realities, in which all these lesser realities have their place, but perhaps at this time of life I feel my real direction and purpose is holding to what to me seems to be first. Like in this coronavirus thing, the whole world is going through different sorts of reactions to it. And the right reaction is just to contain it within this eternal peace in which all will be well. What's the thing? All will be well. There's a well-known medieval mystic called Julian of Norwich, and she did a bit of writing and left these words: all manner of things shall be well. And to that I too say Amen. God bless you, dears. All will be well, that's for sure. Until tomorrow.
And all will be well until tomorrow. The internet has stopped the chat for some reason, unable to connect. Please try again later. So here we are at 2 hours and 23 minutes and 3 seconds. So I am going to say goodnight, and all will be well. I had a great teacher who would always say, everything as it should be, because as I learned how to go deeper and deeper into the mystic schools and into the Akashic records, I would see all this stuff. And he said, oh, no, don't worry about it. Everything is as it should be. So all shall be well, right? Okay. Well, I hope you got something out of this one, and I will talk to you soon, and my prayers are always with you. My love is always with you. And remember, don't worry about what's going on. Just do your best. Serve love's co-creation. Work from your heart. Forget the squirrel in your head, right? So, you stay well now.